Welcome to the new episode of Souvenir Podcast. My name is Christina, and today for the first time you'll hear me speaking English. The reason for that is that I had a guest from Cyprus who surprisingly doesn't speak Czech. So we had to do the interview in English, but don't worry about it since none of us is a native English speaker and we're using very basic vocabulary. I'm sure that you'll be able to follow the conversation. So I have created this series to help you learn the survival vocabulary that you might need while traveling. Even if nowadays English is spoken everywhere and usually you don't actually need to know the language of the country where you're traveling to, I think it's still really nice, and from my own experience I can tell that the locals appreciate it a lot when you at least show some effort and learn some basic words. And another thing is that a language can be the key of understanding of the culture. I always really liked learning new languages. Here in Cyprus I don't take Greek courses. However, I'm kind of learning the language on the street, which is my favorite way to learn the language. So I'm trying to speak with the locals, listening to the words that I hear on the street or from my teachers or anywhere I go, basically. And I pay attention to these words that I hear very often. So the idea was to kind of provide you a similar experience, to invite a local Cypriot to this episode that will explain you some of the basic words, some of the basic vocabulary that can be useful for you, so that you can hear it with the proper accent, with the proper pronunciation, and he will also tell you some interesting facts about the language and some words and phrases and idioms that you can use to impress the locals. And on top of all of that, I have created a downloadable package that I will link in the description of this episode, where you will find flashcards that can help you memorize all the vocabulary that we will be discussing in this episode. Then you will find a cheat sheet of all the words as well, that you can always have on your mobile phone or you can print it. And another thing that you will find there is the edited audio with the vocabulary only. So it's going to be without our conversation, just the pronunciation of these words. And you can download this packet. I have created two versions. One is in Czech, one is in English. And I really hope that this is going to serve you, that it's going to help you to learn Greek in a bit more fun and enjoyable way. And now let's move to the interview with Alex, who kindly agreed to be on this podcast.
Καλημέρα σας, με έναν Αλεξάνδρο και είμαι 25 χρονών. Έρχομαι από την Κύπρο.
Okay, I would like to welcome my dear friend Alex as my first guest on this little series to help everyone learn survival vocabulary while you're traveling abroad. And the first word that probably everyone needs when they're traveling to Cyprus or to Greece is how to say hello. How do you say that?
You say γεια σας.
And sometimes I hear people on the street saying yasu, or they reply yasu to me. So I'm always wondering, what's the difference?
Okay, so γεια σας and yasu are simply directing the phrase towards a plural or a singular. So in this situation, γεια σας is more polite. You're saying hi to you all, which is the Greek form of saying hi, to politely, let's say. And yasu is like saying hi to one single person. So that's saying hi to someone that's maybe a friend, not a teacher, let's say.
What about if you come to a shop? Is it okay to say yasu?
Yes, because it's just a shopkeep. It's not someone like a teacher. It's not an official. You can be impolite or polite, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make a huge difference if it's just someone in public.
Okay. And then, so maybe this is, tell me if I'm wrong, but maybe like the more polite way to greet someone would be to say good morning, good afternoon. How do you say that?
To say good morning, you say kalimera, which literally means good day.
Kalimera.
Then you say for afternoon, kalispera, which literally means good afternoon, or good after the noon, let's say. And then kalinichta, which means good night, which also literally means good night.
Yeah, so you say the last one when you go to bed and you're telling everyone, have a good night.
It works almost exactly the same way like in English.
Okay. And if I wanted to greet you at the beginning of this podcast in Greek, how would I say welcome?
Well, this is an interesting one because it's the first time we're going to notice a significant, or rather maybe insignificant difference between Greek and Cypriot in those two languages. In the Cypriot dialect, I think we would have a more guttural R sound. So instead of saying kalos ήρθατε, you would say kalos ήρθατε. So it sounds a little bit, let's say, less elegant.
I don't hear the difference at all. Yeah. Can you say it again?
Yes. Kalos ήλθατε.
Kalos ήλθατε.
That's for Greek. And kalos ήρθατε for Cypriot.
Kalos ήλθατε. So you put more emphasis on the F.
Well, in linguistics, there is this, I'm not sure the name of it, unfortunately, but there is a common phenomenon where an L sound will turn into a more R sound. And Cypriot is very of the direction of turning into an R sound with all its L sounds.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is very advanced.
Yeah, might be a little bit too advanced for it.
Yeah, people have like problem just pronouncing the word and then the emphasis and everything. But like the first thing that I've noticed about Cyprus that really surprised me in a pleasant way was that lots of people speak English really well. Also the older generation, which surprised me a lot, but then I've realized that it's because it used to be the British colony, so people are very comfortable with English, very used to English. So maybe it's only in the smaller villages where people don't speak English so well. However, I think it's always nice to know at least some expressions and know at least some basic vocabulary when you travel, and people are always really happy when I'm just saying, like yasas and trying at least something. But we've already talked about it a bit. You said that there is a difference between Greek and the Cypriot Greek. It's not just the dialect, but also some vocabulary. Is it also about some grammar?
That's a very interesting question because Greek is already a very fluid language where you can switch the order of words very easily. So, o Marios τρέχει με την μπάλα. That's very proper Greek. It means Marios is running with the ball. Yeah, it's a sentence I just came up with now.
Nice
but you'll notice that it's almost like in English. Marios running with the ball. But in Greek, you can switch the order around because our words, the definitive form, tell you what role they play in the sentence. So, με την μπάλα τρέχει ο Marios. Now I switched it to say with the ball is Marios running.
Okay, so different word order.
Yes, exactly. And so because of that, I don't think there was a huge need for Cypriot Greek to really change the grammar. But in terms of vocabulary, yes, it's quite different. And also with how you pronounce things. So probably the most significant and most obvious difference that a Greek person would notice the moment they walk into Cyprus is that for some reason all the K, very elegant Greek K sounds became ch, like the Greek ke, which is very sort of clean, became ch, which is it's probably one of the first things you notice the moment you walk in here.
Are they making fun of you? Are the Greeks making fun of the Cypriots?
Oh, I'm sure they make fun of our language. It sounds, to a Greek person, it may sound like we're from a village, but it is the way we speak here. It's not strange for us to say che instead of ke. It flows out of us like it's nothing.
Yeah, of course. You're used to it. And I also heard that the Cypriot language, the Cypriot Greek, is very similar to the Greek spoken on Crete, on the island Crete. Is it like... are they actually so similar that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference? Or like, are you able to tell the difference if you meet a person from Crete?
For the first minute, you may have trouble understanding if there is a difference. Because, well, Cyprus obviously has its own little mini dialects. Like if someone's from a village, they'll talk a little bit with a more impactful Cypriot dialect. If you go to another city like Paphos as opposed to Nicosia, they may speak with a slightly different dialect. So the moment you speak with someone from Crete, the thing that would mostly give it away is the words they use. I can't think of any right now in particular because I'm not from Crete, but they do, for example, also say je instead of ke. And that's the number one way a Cypriot would notice if someone is Cypriot. So it might take a bit for us to realize that they're not listening to Cypriot, they're listening to Cretan. So it's very, that is quite an interesting development of those two languages that were quite independent, in their own islands. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's super interesting, actually. Okay, then we have some few words that you might need, for example, in a supermarket or when speaking to a taxi driver and you want to tell him thank you.
You say ευχαριστώ.
And he tells you you're welcome.
Παρακαλώ.
Amazing. How do you say yes?
You say ναι.
And this one is actually very tricky for people from the Czech Republic because for us, ne means the complete opposite. So it's really funny, and for me it took a while to get used to it when I heard people saying ne. And in my head I had to be like, no, they're actually saying yes. But to say no in Greek, you say?
Όχι.
Okay, perfect.
May I interrupt for one?
Of course, yeah.
What's interesting about this is that there's, even in these basic words, there is a distinction between Greek and Cypriot Greek. Then the word for yes, ne, will stay the same. But in Cypriot, we like to shorten it. We don't say ohi very clearly, like with the o, h, and e. We just say oi. It's our way of saying no.
Okay. I never heard that, actually.
It's very common. Just listen for it.
Really?
Yes, they will say oi.
But what I hear super often, like really, really often, at first I heard it everywhere and I was like, okay, what does it mean? Why do they say it all the time? Is endaxi, or sometimes people shorten it to dax or daxi. Mm-hmm. So what does this mean?
Right. I mean, in the most fundamental way, as it means right now in modern Greek, it means okay. It just means okay. The origin of the word, most Greek people, when they look at it, can easily tell it literally means in order. It used to be two words, it seems to be one now. But yes, it just means okay, like everything is fine, endaxi. Okay.
So you can just use this one and sound like a native speaker.
Absolutely.
I also have one teacher who is, the class is in English, but she always flips in a Greek word, which is libon, if I'm saying it right.
Yes,
Can you tell me what does that mean?
Absolutely. The word is libon, and the closest thing I could say it means is remainder, or something along those lines. So essentially, it's like saying, so for the remainder, let's continue, let's say the rest of what we're going to say. So yeah, libon can also be indicating the start of a new thought. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So how would you use it in a sentence?
In a sentence. Well, let's say I'm telling you about one thing, and that leads me to a natural conclusion or a natural next sentence. You will say lipon that, or to lipon this, and it's quite an advanced let's say word to use if you're starting Greek, because you need to be able to combine sentences together, and it's not exactly a word that is exclusively for combining sentences, but it really helps make your Greek sound very fluent when you're talking and you have multiple sentences to say together.
So it's also used like a filling word, just to like my teacher does probably.
Yeah, it's the closest thing I could say it means is something like in English, and so, or well, and yeah, it's kind of used like a filler these days now that I think about it, yeah.
What if I want to ask somebody, how are you?
Then you say tikanis. And tikanis, just like the original yasas or yasu, tikanis is the singular form. So you're talking to a friend, you say tikanis. However, if you're talking to your, let's say, a teacher or someone that you need to be slightly more formal for, you say the plural form, which is tikanete.
Okay.
And it literally means, what are you doing? Which sounds very aggressive now that I think about it, but but generally it's very accepted. This is the normal way of saying, how are you doing?
Yeah, and I also heard about posite. Am I saying it right?
Posise was...
Posise?
Yes, there is no T there. But posise, it literally means, how are you?
Okay, so that's another way to say,
and of course, all of these expressions, or rather greetings, have the formal and the informal form. So for posise, that's the singular. Que posiste is the plural.
Posiste.
Yes.
Okay. What if I want to reply, I'm good, or I'm doing fine?
You would say είμαι καλά.
Είμαι καλά.
If you're saying, let's say, τι κάνεις, είμαι καλά, and then you say εσύ. So that means, εσύ literally means you. So you're saying είμαι καλά εσύ, and then you can also reply simply καλά.
Just καλά.
Yes.
Okay, that's nice. So in the beginning, when you were introducing yourself, when you were saying your name, you used the sentence, my name is...
Yes, the literal expression is, I am called. So, me lene. And then you repeat your name. So, me lene Alexandros.
And if I want to ask you about your name, what is your name?
Πώς σε λένε.
Πώς σε λένε. And how do I ask, where are you from?
Από πού είσαι.
Από πού είσαι. And I reply, I am from the Czech Republic.
Είμαι από τη Τσεχία. Yes, so είμαι από, and then you continue on with the country you're from. So for example, if I wanted to say I am from Cyprus, I would say είμαι από την Κύπρο. If you want to say I am from the Czech Republic, well, the Greeks have shortened it to just Czech as opposed to Czech Republic, but we say είμαι από την Τσεχία.
Είμαι από την Τσεχία. Okay, let's look at some useful sentences. If you want to ask somebody if they speak English, which they probably do, 99% of the time, how do I ask them, do you speak English?
If you want to say, do you speak English, you say, μιλάς αγγλικά.
Μιλάς αγγλικά. And if I need to ask, where is something, how do I ask, where is?
So, for example, if you want to say, where is the ball, or rather something more useful, where's the toilet? I was going to start with ball because that's an easier word to translate to Greek. You say bala. So I could easily insert that into the sentence and say...
No, this can be useful as well.
Yes.
I'm searching for balls all the time.
So you'd say που είναι, and then the word you're looking for. So που είναι η μπάλα, or που είναι η τουαλέτα. So that's how you say where is the ball and where is the toilet, respectively. However, if you wanted to say it in a more Cypriot accent, you would have to say που είναι η τουαλέτα. Που είναι η μάπα, which is our version of saying ball. So clearly, learning Greek is one task, and then learning Cypriot is another task.
Okay, what if I'm searching for a bus station? Because it happens really often that the bus stations are not to be found on Google Maps. So I was searching for bus stations all the time when I arrived. How do I say που είναι η?
Που είναι ο σταθμός.
Ο σταθμός.
Stαθμός is station. But because in Cyprus we only have buses and no other kind of station at all, it's very reasonable to just say, where is the station?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't need to say the word bus. Cool. And what if I'm looking for the beach?
Που είναι η παραλία.
Που είναι η παραλία. Beautiful. If they're replying to me, they might say on the left or on the right. How do I say that?
Respectively, those are arisτερά or δεξιά.
There's this interesting thing that my teacher actually mentioned, and that is that because in Cyprus the weather is, of course, beautiful all the time, 320 days of sunny days per year, and also during the summer it's very hot, and that's why you have more expressions to say it's really hot outside.
Yes.
Can you think of some that you would use?
I'm sure there's some that are very good and are escaping me right now just because there's so many. But we can start with the original standard way of saying it, which is είναι ζέστη. So you say it's literally, it's hot.
Είναι ζέστη.
And a really common way and sort of a casual but sort of a warning kind of way of letting someone know that it's hot outside, say κρούζει. It literally means it's burning.
Κρούζει. Okay, so you're like warning him not to go outside.
Yeah, you can say κρούζει boxo. It literally means it's burning outside. Be careful, don't go outside.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go to a shop and you want to ask how much is it?
You would say πόσα είναι.
Πόσα είναι.
Yes. Let's say you're showing him the object or holding it in your hand and you've already talked about it. You can say πόσα είναι. And that
Πόσα
means
είναι.
how much is it?
Mm-hmm. And then you're probably going to need numbers because he's going to reply you in some word. Can you just quickly say from 1 to 10, how do you count in Greek?
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Perfect. Now let's move to a restaurant or tavernas, how you call them here. A really typical Cypriot and also Greek, I think, thing is to go for coffee. Cypriots love their coffee.
It's one of our national icons.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if you want to suggest somebody to grab a coffee or go for coffee, how would you say? Let's go for coffee.
Πάμε για καφέ.
Πάμε για καφέ. And if you want to order a coffee, I'll have a coffee.
Θα ήθελα έναν καφέ. That's how you would start it. So I would like a coffee. And then they'll say, τι καφέ, τι θέλετε. And you would reply with, θέλω ένα frappé or θέλω ένα latte. So yeah, those are the basic expressions for saying I'd like a coffee. If you'd like to be more precise, if you want to say a frappé with milk, for example, you would say θέλω, which means I want, ένα frappé μεγάλο. And I would say one frappé with milk.
I always order frappé με τρίο μεγάλα. That's what I learned during holiday in Greece, which means like half milk, half sugar.
Yes, metrio literally means medium, or rather not too much, not too little. So it's a middle kind of word, let's say.
What's your favorite coffee, Alex?
Yes, I'm disappointing every Cypriot in the world right now, but I'd have to say an iced latte. It's not a frappe, unfortunately.
When you order it, do you also say freddo latte?
Oh,
or how do you say it?
It really depends on the place, but I would just say iced latte.
Iced latte, and they understand.
Yes.
Okay. And if I'm hungry, how do I say I'm hungry?
That's an interesting question, because this is one of those cases again. I mean, in all of these examples, all of these could have been more Cypriot or more Greek, let's say. It's more of a linear scale. But when you say I'm hungry in proper Greek, you say pinao. And that's the most proper way of saying it. But in Cypriot, we'd say pino. So we skip
Pino.
We skip the A, we just go straight pino.
And if I'm hungry, what can I have in Cyprus? What's the traditional Cypriot food?
There's a lot of traditional food here that I think most people in the world would find very delicious, but the most common one that everyone knows is halloumi. So you can have a bit of
the grilled.
Souvlaki is our version of I'm assuming you say it as shashlik in Czech as well?
Yeah, probably people would understand shashlik, but we call it spis.
Okay. So meat
on a stick.
So souvlaki is our meat on a stick. However, what's very interesting about this is that souvlaki is the mini version of souvla, which is our most prized, let's say, meal we have in Cyprus. So if you're going with your family to, let's say, family dinner, and it's going to be a barbecue most of the time, okay? They'll make souvla, and it's literally a giant souvlaki. So as you imagine the meat on the stick, imagine it on a big metal rod as opposed to a small wooden stick, and the chunks of meat are as big as your fist, and there's just a line of them. So when that's done rotating and cooking over the fire, everyone just gets one piece of souvla.
Oh, I had no idea. That's really cool. Is that your favorite one, or do you have another favorite?
Oh, my favorite is the Cypriot sausage, actually, which we call...
Is it cheftalia?
No. Cheftalia is something else, but the Cypriot sausage is called loukaniko.
Oh, I never tried that. I have to try.
Yes.
What is it made of?
Oh, it's made of probably, once again, not sure about it because it's just something I grew up with, never really got into the culinary aspect of Cyprus. But I would imagine just the innards of pig or...
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have to speak about some bad words. I didn't actually wanted to include them, but Alex convinced me because he said that this is very typical for the Cypriot language, right?
Yes.
You swear a lot.
It's very common, and most of our expressions actually originate from a bad word. So the most, and excuse my language, of course, this is purely educational. When you want to say fuck, or just you want to express disappointment at something, the same way the English would use the same word, you say ramoto.
Ramoto, yeah, this is, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes, that was much better than usual, yes.
So because I was practicing before, because it was really hard. It's something between G and R.
There is no R.
There's no R, but for us it sounds a little bit like R, because it's ramoto.
Yes, so
ramoto.
Exactly. So that's essentially the Greek letter gamma. That's what we use for that word, and it must be difficult, I imagine, for languages that don't have it, because it's essentially a G that doesn't last a split second. So instead of a G, it's a G, and it keeps going. So obviously, yes, ramodo, it means I'm upset at something. And if you're insulting someone, you can easily combine that to create longer sentences that essentially insult someone's attitude, or it's just like the English word fuck. It's very multi-use, you know.
Overuse, maybe.
Overuse. I mean, depends on who you're asking. We're upset here often for some reason. But another bad word is schisto, which I'm not sure if it's fully Greek, but it's so common in Cyprus, and it literally means, it's slang for vagina. So what happens is you can combine those two and say "Ramodo schistosu," which means "fuck your vagina," literally.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's such a common way to say "fuck you." That's our number one way of saying that.
Okay, very nice. Then we have malaka, which I also heard in Greece.
It's probably a Greek word originally, and yes, it just means that someone is stupid or an idiot or an asshole. It's very multi-use as well. So ise malakas means you're an ass. You suck, let's say.
And then we have looked at some Cypriot idioms or phrases, sentences. They're also bad words, so I'm sorry, excuse the bad language. But we have 4 of these.
So the one I'm seeing here in English written is "you overshot it" or "you overshitted it," and it literally literally translated, it's "eparashisesto." So it's often used when someone overdid something, or is overstating something, or overdoing anything, literally. So you overshot it. You're telling me there's 100 candies in the box and there was like 3, you overshot it. Eparashisesto. The next
but
one,
you don't say that to your teacher or your family.
No. I mean, if you really know the teacher really well, you've been hanging out with them for like the whole year, and they say something like, and you're Cypriot, they're Cypriot, and you're just casual with each other, you can say it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of these, that's true, except the ones where you're insulting the other person. In that case, you'd never say it.
The other one?
The next one is literally in English, you've swollen up my balls. And it literally is used for when someone is being very annoying. You say, έπρισε στα αρχίδια μου. And
can a girl say that?
Yes, yes. These are all unisex. We don't make a distinction just because there's genders involved. We don't say.
Very nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, έπρισε στα αρχίδια μου, you would say that if someone's talking, and they don't shut up, and you just turn to them and say, έπρισε στα αρχίδια μου. You know, it's please shut up. It's okay. Like I don't need to be so annoyed.
Okay, and the next one, I'm gonna say this one. You will shit on yourself.
Yes. So that's an expression of calling someone a coward. Or maybe rarely you would say this if something is really going to mess someone up. Okay. So, en να σέσεις πάνω σου. So it literally means, yes, you will shit on yourself. And for some reason we have this obsession with the word, you know, shesis or en να σέσεις, which is the noun and the verb at the same time. We have this obsession with it to imply cowardice. So if you say, είσαι shesis, είσαι means you are. So you say, είσαι shesis, it literally means you're someone who shits himself. You're a coward.
Okay. And the last one, the last bad one, it is of the whore here?
Yes, that's
or
right.
the prostitutes?
Yes,
That was how
yes,
the
whore and prostitute, yes. Είναι της πουτάνας δα μέσα. It literally means that the place you're in is really dirty or messy. It's a very funny way of saying that something is just really messed up in here. Okay.
Can you say it again in
Yes, I haven't said it, yes. And this putanas da mesa. So, let's say imagine an army situation, you walk in and it's all the soldiers haven't been taking care of the camp or something like that. And this putanas da mesa.
Putanas, I think it's the same word in Spanish.
Yes, in Latin languages, puta is the same word, yes.
Yeah, because it sounds a little bit Spanish. Okay, let's speak a little bit more about the typical Cypriot expressions and Cypriot slang. There's one thing that I was wondering, and it is if there are any similarities with the Turkish language, because for years and years the Turk Cypriots have been living with the Greek Cypriots, so it makes sense that some of the words are in common. So are there any words or expressions that come to your mind that are common with the Turkish language?
Yes. One of the most common Turkish expressions you hear all the time, and it's also used in Greece, I would say, perhaps, is asiktir, which anyone who speaks Turkish can probably tell you it means something. Obviously, I don't speak Turkish, but this is a word used in my vocabulary often. It does mean, once again, apologies for my language, it does mean fuck, it means shit, it means I'm unhappy with the situation. Asiktir.
I thought we were done with the bad word.
Unfortunately, we're not, but this is, you will see this anytime, and it's of Turkish origin, yes.
Okay. And are there any others?
Yes, of course.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, the most common one, well, it's not the most common, but one that comes to mind very easily for some reason in my mind is the word for butcher in Cypriot, which is kasapis. What's interesting is that that's not what the Greeks would say for butcher. In fact, I have never heard of the Greek word, so the Cypriot one has completely taken over my understanding of what a butcher is, kasapis. And the original word, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly in Turkish, is kasap. So that's an example of a word that's been completely absorbed by the Cypriot dialect.
I see.
And one that is absorbed by both the Greek and the Cypriot is the word karpuzi, which means watermelon and probably comes from the Turkish karpuz. It's possible it's the other way around, but all I know is that it is a shared word here.
Nice. I was also wondering if, because in the Czech Republic, we had a period when people were really trying to get rid of the German words that are, and the German influence that are in the Czech language. And they were trying to come up with new words to replace those German words, so to make the language pure and purely Czech. So, because we know that there is this conflict between the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots, I was wondering if you know about some words that the Greek Cypriots were trying to replace. Are there such tendencies, like to make the Turkish words disappear from the dictionary, from the vocabulary?
Not that I'm fully aware of. If there is, it's very subconscious. And additionally, even among the people I know that aren't very fond of the Turks, they still use the Turkish origin words because it's so ingrained in what our language is. We don't notice half the time if the word is we don't say, oh, that's Turkish, I'm not going to use that, because that's just the words that even our grandparents have been using. So to us, it's Cypriot. We're just talking Cypriot. And you may argue that we've fully integrated it and it is Cypriot in a way. Yes, it was Turkish, but the origin of it happened so far back that it's very difficult to argue these days. Just like with food, you know, who invented this, who invented that? You'd say, oh, it's Cypriot, oh, it's Turkish, oh, it's Greek. It may be possible that we as Cypriots feel the same way about some words, as in it's the natural way we say them. We don't even acknowledge where they came from, and we move on.
Do you also use lots of English words?
Yes, me in particular, because obviously my English is decent, and I feel like I'm more comfortable in it sometimes. So yes, we have this concept called Greeklish.
Greeklish.
Yes.
Oh.
So
we have Chenglish.
Chenglish, yes. So of course I'll throw in my English word every now and then when a word is too difficult. This is very common in Greek, for example, to say to computer as opposed to o υπολογιστής. Because it's much easier to say computer than the whole υπολογιστής thing. So it's, that's quite a common way.
But I've also noticed that sometimes when I go to a supermarket and there are Cypriots like buying something and then they say thank you at the end instead of ευχαριστώ. Yeah. And that to me is so strange. Like in Czech, nobody would ever do that. You know, like saying, but maybe it's because also for you the language is more common.
For me in particular, yes. I'm not sure if it's because of the British influence of the Cyprus being a British, perhaps it was part of the British Commonwealth at some point. Maybe that did influence the way we speak, and we do have some thank yous in here and there, but it's more of a casual thank you, let's say. We switch to English if we're trying to be more casual, I would say, in a very broad stroke.
My favorite Cypriot expression that Alex actually told me is siga siga. And it's a beautiful word, or beautiful two words, because you say it.
Sure.
I like it more when you say it.
The expression is siga siga, and it's probably the first expression you will be taught in Cypriot if you're talking to any Cypriot, because it perfectly captures the attitude of Cyprus. It means slowly, slowly. And we use this whenever someone's in a rush or we're trying to slow down the situation because there's no pressure, there's no concern. We say slowly, slowly, siga siga.
So beautiful. I wish we had something like that in Czech. In Czech, we have the opposite. People are like trying to make you speed up and go faster. And then there's also an expression with the word siga. Which they also say in Greek, you told me?
Yes, this is more of a Greek expression. I can see it here. It's sigata lachana, which it literally means slow the vegetables. Not sure why Greek and Cypriot have this obsession with vegetables and fruits, but we do.
Maybe because you grow many.
Yes, probably that, yes. So sigata lachana, slow the vegetables, is used to say no big deal. So someone is trying to tell you, oh, this happened yesterday and it was very dramatic, and you don't find it very dramatic, so you just say sigada lachana. It's not very interesting. Yeah.
Really cool. And then you also told me you have this expression to ask if something is edible, but it's only one word.
Yes.
That means, is it edible?
Yes. So this is probably a modern development, or maybe not, but it's becoming quite popular among my friends at least. So if you run into a word that doesn't make sense to you, or is just some alien word, or you're trying to make fun of the ignorance of, let's say, a Cypriot who doesn't know a lot of words, you would say, after the person says the word, so they say something in English like, I don't know, the table, the Cypriot could reply, troide, It literally means, what is this? Is this edible? Like, they have no idea what this word is. So their first assumption is to say, is it edible? They think it's food.
So is this like when you meet a Cypriot person and you want to make him laugh? Can you just say this? Like, ask Troite, and he's going to make him laugh?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a meta joke. It really emphasizes the fact that we as Cypriots have so limited understanding of some foreign words that we really like, and also our obsession with food is just combined into this phrase. So yes, I think if you speak Greek and you're with your friends and who also speak Greek, and you hear a word that you've never heard of before, you repeat the word, you say, what is this? Is this edible?
Okay, that's really funny. And we have a few more expression or idioms from the Cypriot slang. The first one means literally no horse.
Yes, it's very, very common, this one. In Cypriot, actually, it's more Cypriot than Greek. We say oyaparo.
Oyaparo.
Yes, so it's like, it's a form of exclamation, like, oh, no way, kind of. Like someone drives their car off the cliff and they survive perfectly fine, like unscathed. You say, oyaparo. No way.
Oyaparo, okay.
Yeah. Literally means no horse.
Okay, the other one is translated as listen to look.
Yes, so listen to look. It's our way of saying, let me explain. It's usually used after a big debate or a big argument. You say like, listen to look. Agunavis is the Cypriot version.
It sounds so poetic, actually. The other one is not that poetic because in Cyprus you have really, really tasty cucumbers. You also told me that you're famous for exporting them. Is that right?
I'm not sure if we're famous for them, but I think we do export. Yes, and they are more delicious than the ones I've found in Europe, that's for sure. Yes.
Of course. Yes. That's because of the sun.
Yes.
And the good soil, probably.
Probably that one, yes.
So that's why the cucumbers also made it into the Cypriot slang and into the Cypriot language. What does it mean when I say
anguri?
Anguri.
Yes, anguri is our version of cucumber. It's how we say cucumber. The thing about this word is that it's so multifunctional that I can't really place what it really means. I mean, I guess you could say it as no way. I guess you could say it as there's nothing there. I guess there's so many uses for this word that I'm sure if you just say anguri at the end of some phrase, at the end of a Cypriot discussion, you will probably make sense.
But is it more a positive or a negative word?
It's a kind of negative word. It does feel like the kind of word you would say when you're disappointed.
Okay.
You just say cucumber.
That's strange because I thought everybody likes cucumbers here. But let's stay with the fruit and vegetable. Another expression is about the watermelons. Yes,
so the English literal is you're losing your watermelon. Or rather, the more perfect description is your watermelon is losing. So it's our way of saying if you're being dumb, or asking rather if you're dumb. You know, is your watermelon losing? Like.
So does the watermelon refer to the head?
Yes, it does refer to the head.
Makes sense.
Yes. So 한입 batůžku. Yeah. So that's the question form. Literally, losing is your watermelon. Yeah.
What do I say if I overeat on souvlaki after a Cypriot barbecue?
Yeah. So it literally means my belly button has fallen. Yeah.
Really cute. That's my favorite one. And then another one, which means you sat on top.
Yes. So this is probably one of the more common ones. In the event that you messed up, you did something awful, and now you have to face the consequences. Let's say you say έκατσες πάνω. You sat on top. What you sat on is vague. So this is very, very common if even from like a father telling his son that he messed up and now he's going to face consequences. He will say, you sat on top.
You will face consequences.
Yes, έκατσες πάνω.
Nice. What if I want to threaten someone or tell him I will beat him up?
Yes, I love the theme of this podcast so far. You know, it's very insulting and very threatening, but
it's terrible. I don't know if we're teaching the people who want to come here the right word.
You see, the weather is so nice. We have to compensate with our language sometimes. But yes, so our way of saying I'm going to beat you up, or someone got beat up, literally to get beaten up in our idiom form or slang way, and it's very common to say this, is you will eat wood. So eating wood is our version of saying getting beaten up. So να φάεις ξύλο. That's me saying you will eat wood.
Mm-hmm. And we have a last one, finally. When somebody is breaking my nerves.
Yes.
How do I say that?
So literally, you broke my nerves. Έσπασες τα νεύρα μου.
Έσπασες τα νεύρα μου. Let's finish it with some nice words. How do you say love?
Love is αγάπη.
Αγάπη. And I also know one, γλυκιά μου.
Γλυκιά μου. Yes.
Γλυκιά μου means my darling.
My sweet, literally.
My sweet.
Yes.
How do you say the sun?
Ήλιος.
Ήλιος.
Yeah.
And how do you say the most important? Beer.
Well, it's beer, bira. So
Bira. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for being on this podcast. I had to convince Alex, I had to buy him lots of sweets. But I'm really happy that he agreed, because I think he did really well.
Yes, I actually had a great time, and I'm also very glad to be leaving this with very healthy taste buds, let's say.
So that was Cypriot Greek with Alex. If you're interested in taking it one step further, and if you actually want to learn all these words, memorize all of this vocabulary and practice it a bit more, I have created the downloadable packet. You will find the link in the description of this episode or on my website. And inside of it you will find online interactive flashcards that will help you memorize everything better. You will find there a cheat sheet and also edited audio of all the expressions being pronounced by a native speaker, Alex. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and see you next time.